Well, this is, I'm not political. I'm supposed to be apolitical, and I am a detective lieutenant with the Michigan State Police. I've been with the State Police for 22 years. Before that, I was with the Department of Corrections for 5 years. I worked with juveniles, women, men, men's max. So I've seen crime on the inside and crime on the outside. So when I was asked to come here tonight, it was basically a thumbnail sketch of what H.U.N.T does. And we are a multi-jurisdictional task force, which is supervised by a lieutenant from the state police, a detective sergeant from the state police is my assistant commander. We have a trooper from the state police, and then other entities, local entities that choose to participate. So without giving out too much information, there's local entities supervised by the state police, and we ask for funding for the personnel from the outside agencies and a portion of funding for the team. We can operate under adjudicated forfeiture, but that would be counterproductive to what we are trying to achieve here. And if we spent that money, then we wouldn't have anything to operate. So you can't spend all your savings account and expect to live forever, and that's the basic premise of that. So by taking on local folks, we get the flavor for the community. You have an investment in your community, and we provide training of basic and advanced narcotics, surveillance, raid entry. Those schools are the basic schools that we give. We will also provide the opportunity for methamphetamine training to most everyone, and that's a fiscally based training. It's very difficult to get someone in there now, but with that said, regarding meth, if a county does not participate with a multi-jurisdictional task force and they have a methamphetamine lab, the county or a municipal agency is responsible for the cleanup cost. That's horrifically expensive. So we bear all that by participation. We have a meth response team in this district that will abate hazardous materials from a meth lab. So our objective is very simple. We go after drug trafficking organizations. We don't go after people that use marijuana or use drugs, if you will. We do come across them, and we do enforce that when we come across them. But our primary objective is the drug trafficking organizations. Those people that are either leaving our communities and going elsewhere and bringing the product back, or those people that live elsewhere and that are polluting our communities. And we're seeing a lot of that. Right now, the common trend is Detroit, Flint, and Saginaw have found a market in northern Michigan. So Rite Aid is one of those companies that will go to an area with less than 10,000 people and take a chance, okay? And they've been very successful. If you look in Mile, there's a Rite Aid that's been there forever. So that business model has gone to the drug dealers, where they're going to these areas that are maybe economically depressed or maybe a smaller populace, and they are infiltrating our area. So why should Alcona be on board? You are a pathway to a major city in our area, and your area is infiltrated right now with those things. So biggest concerns for us, and I'm going pretty quick, right now is pill diversion. And pill diversion simply means that you have a valid prescription for a narcotic-based or an opiate-based medication, and that you sell those pills or trade those pills. Okay? Heroin, which is usually a direct result from pill diversion. Once you become addicted to an opiate, when it's in a pill form from a prescription, it's very high priced. Oxycontin will go for $1 a milligram. So if you have an 80 milligram tablet, that's $80. $100 can get you a whole gram of heroin. So you have enough to last a week or 3 days as opposed to one pill. So it behooves them financially to go to the heroin automatically. And thirdly, the medical marijuana or the marijuana that's going on in our community. There's going to be some legislation for recreational marijuana, and I really, without touching on it too much, there's some web information out there, and I really hope that people will kind of research it on their own. basic premise behind the Medical Marijuana Act was to work right into this recreational act. And it's a Rocky Mountain, remember the name of it, Rocky Mountain Foundation. It's Colorado.
Rocky Mountain High, yeah.
Right. The, Colorado has done some studies on what happened with medical marijuana and how it transitioned into the recreational marijuana. So, basic math, okay? So if we're
Been
talking
down to
about,
Lansing lately?
or Detroit,
Well, I mean,
I
I
was
was
just
just
in
in Lansing and all the green crosses.
right? Yep. So bottom line right now, medical marijuana wise, a caregiver can have 5 patients in themselves, 12 plants per patient. So they can have 72 plants. They can grow 3 times a cycle a year, roughly a pound of marijuana per plant. And there's a lot of people that object to that. They say there's no way you're going to get a pound of marijuana. The thing is, with the medical marijuana folks, they are very good at what they do. They can have a high yield for a smaller plant. You know, 20 years ago, someone grew out in their yard, they didn't get that much, plain and simple. And that was always kind of the statistic used. So anyway, that breaks down to about 216 pounds per patient. I'm sorry, about 36 pounds per patient per year. There's about 58 marijuana cigarettes in an ounce, 896 marijuana cigarettes in a pound. So basically, that's giving the patient 88 marijuana cigarettes per day, all year. So that's a thumbnail here.
Whoa.
What's happening is the medical aspect is making a huge surplus, and that's going to go to the recreational aspect of it. So I really encourage people to look and try to educate themselves. I'm not a politician and I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert in this, but it's a very scary thing. They're using the leaves, the stems, the seeds, they're forcing butane through that, and they're making an edible or a medible marijuana, and the THC level is at 80 or 90%. So in the 80s, THC level in marijuana was 1.7%. 1.7%. Because of medical marijuana, it's gone up to 28% on regular plant material. Then when they make the medible, that's at 80 to 90% THC. There's psychoactive, healthcare concerns. There's research that has not been done. They haven't touched the surface on what's happening. So with marijuana at about 11%, they say that an average person loses 6 IQ points from chronic use. So, very briefly, that's what we're battling. Pill diversion, heroin, and in this type of marijuana. We don't mess with those that are in compliance. We'll actually do inspections to make sure they're in compliance. And if we find that they're out of compliance, we'll just ask that they become in compliance. But that's what we want, is them to contact us so that we can make sure they're doing it right. Do I agree with the law? Doesn't matter. I follow the law, regardless of what the law is, and that's what I stand for. So there has been question about how we operate, what we do with people. We can't win this war, if you will, on our own as far as enforcement goes. There has to be education, and there has to be treatment, and there has to be enforcement. So Alcona Health right now is kind of getting ahead of the treatment issue. We're trying to get into the education as well. And, you know, my primary concern is the enforcement. With enforcement, there is an act in the forfeiture portion. There's an omnibus act, and there's a chop shop act, but there's a narcotics act. And I can seize assets. I can seize vessels, manner of conveyance, airplanes, if you will, but that doesn't occur. Vehicles that are used or purchased with the proceeds from illegal sales of narcotics, marijuana, and what have you. So we don't go after the kid that has a bag of marijuana. We're not going to take his mom and dad's car. We can't do that. We're going to take a drug dealer's car that's driving from Detroit up here with heroin. Absolutely, we're going to take his vehicle. We may even freeze his assets in a bank. We may take every dollar that he has that is in close proximity to that drug, And we're gonna take those and they're going to be used after they're adjudicated to assist us in our endeavors. Forfeiture is a civil proceeding. It's not a criminal proceeding, and there's different, levels between criminal and civil. And with the blessing of the prosecutor from whatever county we're in, we move forward with a forfeiture case. The person that we seize something from has the right to post a bond. They have a right to have a hearing. They don't automatically lose these things, and it's part of our process. So if there's any questions about forfeiture, it's very not on our side, if you will. We have to show that that stuff was in proximity, it was a result of profits, it was used for delivering or manufacturing. So we have a lot of parameters, and in fact, my unit is under more scrutiny than a police officer going down the road. It just has to be that way, because we deal with money and we deal with drugs, and a lot of times I'm very clean. I have a very clean appearance. Most of our people you wouldn't believe were police officers. So, still, people don't think I am. Can you imagine that? No. But we are undercover, so we deal with in ways that some people think might be scandalous, but that's not true. We are held to a higher standard, and there's a board that Tom is part of that watches what we do and watches my spending. That's about it as far as how we operate. I mean, does that touch? Mm-hmm. Warren, you're sitting back there with a look in your face.
Good.
Should I blur your face on this video?
No.
Okay.
How long have we been without H.U.N.T? And what did we lose when we did not vote H.U.N.T in?
3 years, hasn't it?
Sure. I'd be more than happy.
All right.
Were you done with your?
Well, yeah, I can be done.
I can help you out with that too, guy.
I believe it's been about 4 years since we've been up without officer on the H.U.N.T team. My name's Tom Weichel. I've been the prosecutor here for 24 years. I was the H.U.N.T chair for probably 15 of those 24 years. I was here back in 1991 when the idea of a concept team came into play. And the necessity of having trained police officers who specialize in narcotics enforcement that can get into the traffickers. Our road patrol they'll run into a few individuals a year that might be transporting their own personal use stuff, but where do they get their personal use stuff from? So when we lose the ability to investigate the people who are supplying, we take a big hit. Our community does. Because we're fighting right now, Stalin's right. We're right in the middle of a war. I don't care how you look at it, I can tell you it's probably 90% of the crimes I deal with have some kind of addiction involved. And when you talk about the problems with opiates, it seems to start with pills and they get addicted either from doctors or whatever it happens to be. But the problem is these pills are all over the place. We lost an individual last summer, I think it was in the Greenbush area, on a morphine overdose. And you hear that kind of stuff, but you really don't understand the impact it has on our community. That family's devastated. Now there are children without a father. amazes me when I look at this stuff, when I need a ride, what do you give me? Well, I'll give you a 515 milligram morphine. No, I don't want 515 milligrams. All right, I'll give you a 60. And I'll throw in some blues too and some benzos. You know, and you read about this stuff and you see it, and when you see this pattern that's developed, and you start recognizing the damage it does to the people and the families in our community, because they can't control the addiction. You read it, I'm hurting, I need some, you got it, and I'll front you. I start wondering, I wonder a lot of things, let me tell you. But when you see it, and you see the damage it causes to our community, it's just incredible. And you talk about what have we lost, I can tell you within a year of H.U.N.T being gone, we had, what Sheriff talked about, individuals from Detroit moved in and what's that? In between two police officers. Embedded in our community, two folks from Detroit who were selling heroin and cocaine in 5 different counties.
Why does it appear IOSCO has less of a problem?
So they have, you don't even want to go to IOSCO, their problems are horrific. When they lost Sting, the drug explosion, narcotics explosion in Alcona was immense. I just talked to one of their officers from Alcona Township this morning. To date this year, he has 53 drug arrests. And he is a road officer. He actually had gone through and worked with H.U.N.T when he was with Alcona County. 53.
Yeah, actually, I misspoke. I meant to say, why does Tawas appear to have less of a problem than Oscoda?
That I don't know. I don't hear the statistics from Tawas, but the problem is there. My guess is
If there's a perception of that, it's because
they're
we
not
have-
being caught.
You're right, they either
The
not getting
users
caught or
prefer,
there's a higher police.
the users find more accessibility in Iosco County than they do. Well, you gotta
I don't know that you could even say that. I don't think you could come to that conclusion. You would have an appearance maybe in that area because of the high uniform presence on US 23, but I guarantee you, if you get off that corridor, that drug problem is still there. Absolutely, just like it is here.
So basically, the H.U.N.T, I just want to go back a little bit. The H.U.N.T program took care of the trafficking that was coming from Detroit, Saginaw, and Flint.
Well, I understand something, because one of the big issues during the last millage was a lot of misinformation that was thrown out there. The trafficking in our county comes from Iosco and Alpena for the most part.
Okay.
Now, where did they get it from? Downstate, Saginaw, Flint, Detroit, those areas.
What I'm trying to get my head around is the fact that, if I'm understanding you, you're taking care of most of the large-scale marijuana and heroin stuff, and he's bringing up the prescription pill thing.
No, I brought up
Oh, yeah.
prescription pills. Let me give you just some narrative.
I'm just trying to.
Yep, let me give you just a really quick, about a month ago, we got the opportunity to buy some pills from a lady. So we generally try to make sure we know who, what, when, why, where, and how before we go do something. When we put an undercover officer into an engagement like that, we want to make sure that they're safe, and that everyone is safe in there. And we bought pills from a lady who, when we interviewed her and arrested her, had been selling her prescriptions for 8 years, undetected. She continued on with her same prescription pills and never took one of them, and has sold them and funded her home and funded her vehicle and her children through the sale of pills that she got. That is called pill diversion. Those people that she sells those pills to became addicted to opiates, and they in turn have to get heroin because they can no longer afford those pills. So the diversion is with us. 20 years ago and 25 years ago with the inception of Hunt, everyone thought it was just marijuana, and marijuana was prevalent. But that's not the case. And our investigations are so in-depth, for us to find a meth lab takes us months. We've gotten 3 this winter, okay? For us to get into someone that's diverting their pills takes a lot of confidence and a lot of work. That takes months. Sometimes it'll take an hour. Most of the time, that takes hours. These are exhaustive investigations that go on. And I push my people very hard. We've increased our complaint numbers, and that's the kind of stuff that we're after.
So what, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what are we doing to stop the pill epidemic? Because I'm gathering this is all legal prescription stuff. I mean, basically, somebody's writing a script for it.
Yes, starts there. And I know that Tom wants to, go on with this, but the United States gets 97% of the opiate-based painkillers in the world, okay? We're 4% of the population. So I don't have an answer for when you go into ER or your doctor that there's 1 to 10 smiley faces, and you tell them that you're 6 on the smiley face, and they want to give you an opiate. I don't have an answer for that, but what I'm trying to do is target those people that are selling those pills, but we do have a problem with that. So there are people much higher up the chain than I dealing with that. I'm your community resource.
Also, if you follow the news, there's been a couple of doctors taken out recently downstate, and one was up north someplace. And they were writing hundreds and thousands of scripts for opiate pain medication. They were seeing their patients for about a minute. Oh, you're still in pain, here you go. There are things being done. I think the DEA got involved in that also because they have licensing controls in reference to that. But when we look at controlled substances, I don't qualify between heroin, cocaine, or these pills. The law does that for me on how we decide to charge. But back to the initial problem we face with that misinformation that came out, yes, we had a man on a team. Yes, that man probably spent 80% of his time in Alpena County because 80% of our drugs come from Alpena County. So if we're taking out a dealer in Alpena County, we're benefiting this community. Where do you go shop? You go to Walmart, or you go to Myers, or you know, where you go? Well, the people who are abusing narcotics do the same thing. But one of the biggest pieces that a man on the team gives us is communication. Because understand that police officers are human beings too, and they like to share with their own people. They share that information with their own people. And I've dealt with and had to prosecute probably, I'd say 5 or 6 drug cases in our community without Hunt's involvement. Without that specialized training that allows us to reach out and grab people that are supplying that might not be in our community. So that's one of the things that we lose. And I've seen it with the drugs that are coming into this community, the types of cases I'm dealing with. When you start talking about drug overdoses and what's going on, I had to handle a case in Alpena County, which was a methadone overdose rape. Opiate addicts are sent to, or can be sent if they're involved in treatment, they go to methadone clinics. And those methadone clinics are supposed to be run pretty tight. You go there to get your methadone and you take it. Well, it was Christmas and they gave them 4 days for the methadone. So it just leads to a nightmare. But, I look at our community, even as small as it is, the prescription drug problem is probably one of the biggest things that I see right now, all over the place. Last year I was in Alabama a training, and there were prosecutors there from all over the United States, and we all asked, because I'm always interested, what's your biggest problem? Every one of them said opiates and meth. I've prosecuted an individual since Hunt's been gone for manufacturing meth at the north end of our county, who in turn taught at least 10 people how to cook meth. So think what that does. Now, how we got to that person, 4 or 5 of them got caught in Alpena cooking, and they finally rolled. Well, how come nothing happened to him? Well, what do you mean? Well, he's the one who taught us. Well, he's serving 7.5 to 20 years right now. The teacher, the professor, I call him. We have another case, a meth case at the west end of the country. He was cooking, wasn't a very good cook, never really figured out how, but his addiction again started with pills. Morphine, other opiate pain meds, and pretty soon he couldn't afford to buy it, so he can try and make his own. Thank God he wasn't good at it. So when you look at why we need Hunt, why we need a man on that team, look at the children in the school. Look around your community. That's why we need a man on a team, to keep those kids safe. I mean, we have issues when you start talking about this transgender stuff. It is eating our country up from the inside out. I could go on probably for another couple hours and tell you the things that I've seen and how we have to remove children from homes, how you can, and Lieutenant Sharp will tell you, you go into a house that's got heroin involved and there's little kids around, there's heroin bindles in a drawer where there's kids' toys. What kind of life does that child have, or even stand to have, when that kind of stuff is going on?
To me, that's a symptom of a problem.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're dealing with symptoms. So
Oh,
where
yeah.
do you start with the source? And I'm in healthcare, and I'll tell you,
You can go back.
big pushes, don't be in pain. Keep the patient
Right.
comfortable.
That started in the 80s.
Yeah.
We
Big
had a
push.
whole change in our healthcare system, and that's when it started. It's looking at these subjective symptoms. There was a complete change. And when you go to different trainings across the United States, I've been in DC a couple of times for our drug court conferences, and they've got it narrowed down to what happened and why this country is where it's at. Feeling good
And
is more important than what's causing the pain.
Or do the work to feel
Yeah.
good. Because I'll tell you, as a rehab therapist, the minute a patient gets better, because they don't want to work,
Oh, yeah.
they'll claim they're in pain and then drop out of therapy, and I will never see them again. We see that over and over. So there's a symptom. There's always a cause, and we're always dealing with the symptom. So we're
Absolutely.
going to be paying for somebody's behavior all the time. So, I want to go higher than that. You're asking us to deal with the symptom. It's something far greater than that. You got to go beyond the symptom.
A long time ago when we first started Hunt, I was a firm believer in supply and demand, and you take care of the supply and demand. And how do you take care of that demand in our county? Well, that's why we started a drug court, to start providing treatment, to take care of this belief that they can't live without an opiate running through their veins. And it gets to the point where you see individuals who can't control that use, and it destroys their lives and everyone around them.
You choose not to control it. There's a difference. You're dealing with symptoms.
Well,
And well, unless, you know, do you want us as taxpayer, and I'm saying that to support it, but do you want us as taxpayers to constantly fix a symptom versus addressing the root problem?
I think the root problem,
I
yeah.
really would like
Just
that.
very
Yeah.
quickly, the only statistic I generally care about is 0. So if we have 0 overdose deaths, I can live with that, I guess, because that is someone, and especially in a community this size, that you know. It could be related to you, it could be your son, it could be your daughter, or their friend in school, it could be your friend, because opiates, there's no gender, there's no age, it doesn't discriminate. So it can take anyone. Nurses, healthcare runs into the problem a lot, you know that. So, you know, if we can stop and not have overdoses in our community, I think I've been successful. That's how I look at it. But, you know, what you're talking about is not a local issue. And then you guys are in the right forum for that.
Yep,
Okay?
that's
You-
where
you
our
know how to-
legislators need
that's
to come
the
in
politics
and,
that a state police official doesn't get involved in. I have my own beliefs. I've been excited about some things I've heard today. And, you know, as a person. However, I said it earlier, education and enforcement and treatment. Drug court, there's some patient issues, and I have only been in this chair for just short of a year. Here I am. So I'm not afraid of the education aspect.
we've been pushing for a long time to start trying to hold doctors accountable for what they're doing. We have a system in Michigan called MAPS, which is the Michigan Automated Prescription System, which you're probably familiar with. I can't tell you the number of MAPS reports I get, which doctors are supposed to use, but pharmacists are mandated to use. So every time a prescription is filled, it's got who it's to, what they're prescribed, who the doctor was, when, right on down the line. I can look at a MAPS report and wonder why 4 doctors are writing the same person similar prescriptions. Why aren't these doctors checking?
it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory for the doctor, it's not mandatory for them to check. So there's a big push around the state with prosecutors saying, come on, docs, get on board with this stuff.
Well,
Look what you're doing.
in all fairness, after I heard what my wife went through with the Obamacare changes, and the way they changed the whole reporting, I'm not gonna beat the doctors up too much. I mean, you know, they've gone from caring for people to it's like they've got minutes and times they gotta account for, and,
This was pre-Obama.
well,
Yeah.
It's been going on for
but,
years,
but I'm saying this ain't helping.
years and years. I haven't even begun to talk about the marijuana issues with dabbing. And they're making this in wax, and it's made with butane, and it's caused, I don't know how many explosions and deaths going on out there, and it's really a direct result of the petitions that were floated around out there for medical marijuana. And we got stuck with having to follow this language that was on the ballot, which was designed to really confuse everybody, admittedly so, and allowed the door to be opened. You talk to the folks in Colorado about this recreational marijuana, it's been a nightmare for them. Absolute nightmare.
Now, that marijuana is against federal law. Why is the federal law government ignoring this law?
Because they were told to.
Okay, and where's the accountability to the federal government? I mean, come on, if it's against the federal law, then why is the state of Michigan or any state allowing that law to pass at the state level? Because by golly, we know all these other things that the state had voted down, and the federal law said, oh no, that's against our federal law, you've gotta uphold it, we're seeing it. I mean, how
4
can we
years,
have such
four years ago, our
hypocrisy?
U.S. attorney sent out a letter to basically saying ignore it. One of the largest growers in California, the feds went after and they just dismissed it. I think it was 2 weeks ago. The feds did. They said, we're done with this.
So now us taxpayers have to pay for those kind of things because our government, our local governments, our state governments won't say, hey, wait a minute, you're out of line here, this is the federal law.
You know,
Uphold the law, that's what you said, uphold the law, then we wouldn't have to be doing this kind of stuff.
to get a real good idea as to what's going on, even with drug courts, we have a grant here. We are mandated by our grant to allow medically assisted recovery. Now, what does that mean? That means they should be allowed to take drugs such as Suboxone, which is an opiate, methadone. We have to allow that, even though those pills are addictive. How did those lobbyists get in to this federal grant process and allow this to happen? Yeah.
I get a lot of people like you and them who don't go out there. I mean, if it's coming,
There's a new drug called Vivitrol, which is an injectable, which is probably one of the better drugs. It's non-addictive, it's an opiate blocker, does some other things, and it lasts for 30 days. $2,000 a shot. So I kind of look at that, and I look at our opiate painkiller addiction, and I look at all these drugs that are designed to take this addiction away, and I look at these pharmacy companies, and I go,
Doctors taking
why?
drugs.
But, I'm a little bit off the subject. I can tell you the need is there. I can tell you the reasons why. And it's really up to you folks to talk to other people about what's going on out there.
If you think it's not prevalent, I called Tom on the way here to tell him, and I tried to call Gary, that I was gonna be late, because two of my officers were in a fight, right? So, they fought a guy in a bathtub, because he had a warrant, and he ran on him in the house. Tried to flush heroin, about 10 grams, which is somewhere around 100 doses of heroin, in the toilet where his son was going potty. So he couldn't successfully flush the heroin down the toilet, and he got in a fight with two police officers in the bathtub. So we took roughly 10 grams of heroin, almost $700 from him, a huge bag of marijuana, scales, and what now, on the way down here, I believe to be methamphetamine, which is in my office, which I can't have in my office. So, it's important for me to speak to you, but I have possibly some officers in jeopardy. That's today. That's my detective sergeant is not working. That is within 2 hours of coming here. So I left there to come here. And that is what's going on in our communities. There was 5 kids in that house when
Oh
this
my
occurred.
God.
Warren?
Yeah, there's things we can do and there's things we can't do. We talk a lot about things that we cannot have control over, federal level, all that other stuff. I operate on the fringe of what you do. I still touch, but what I hear from people when they get caught or when they get contacted or something like that, they're under the impression that they're safe in Alcona County because we don't have a H.U.N.T team. Oh, well, why are you arresting me? I'm safe here. So if they figure that they're safe here and they're bringing meth labs into our county, how much does it cost roughly for our county to put someone on the H.U.N.T team? 40,000?
Well, the cost is, and I'm not a politician.
No, but it's,
Okay, but the officer's wages, and I'm under the belief that the officer would be here in uniform regardless,
Right.
correct?
Right.
So it's an officer that you have that you would pay either on the road or with us,
So you're-
and we take about
you're offering
17,000 is what we
what does
have.
it cost then for us as a county to clean up a meth lab? A whole lot more than an officer's wages that you're
Yes.
paying anyway.
Right.
So the fact that we're not having someone on the H.U.N.T team drives me, take that off me because I'm used to that.
Sorry.
Nuts. It drives me nuts.
When are we gonna have yard signs that say vote yes?
Oh, yes. Yeah, what I'm getting is that the source of the problem is our federal government. down to the state government levels, and then
The voter
here
kicked
locally,
them out.
that's what these guys do, day in, day out. They keep our kids safe, they try and keep our families safe by getting these people off our streets.
The effect we have, if I could, the effect we have is we have these group from Detroit, and they were bona fide gangbangers. Certainly didn't belong in northern Michigan. My detective sergeant and I found out on a weekend, and he and I came in, just the two of us, and tried to do surveillance on them. And on the weekday, Monday, when my team came in, we got on them early in the morning, and they discovered that the police were following them within about 20 minutes. And we could not keep up with them. They left Alcona so fast, drove through your community, okay, and left. So through our intelligence, we found out that they were extremely heavily armed with automatic weapons. They chose not to engage us, but imagine when your deputy is on one of these nice sunshiny roads, or Warren's sitting there, and here comes this car at 90 miles an hour, and they try to do a traffic stop.
They're done.
That is totally unacceptable to me. Totally unacceptable.
You know, we also have 2 cartels operating in Michigan, Mexican cartels.
Really?
We know that because of the type of heroin. The heroin can be tested and tracked back to the cartel they came from. That's nice. I heard that last summer and
Wow.
about fell down. So when you start looking at the illegal controlled substance activities that occur, there's no limit because it's all greed generated. We're stuck up here with the people who get addicted, and they'll get it from wherever they can. And pretty soon nothing matters. They're breaking into houses. They're stealing from stores. They're going up to Walmart and committing multiple retail frauds, selling their stuff.
Human trafficking.
That they've stole, human trafficking, you name it. Up here, we're on the fringe of that.
When you say human trafficking, what are they doing?
Exploitation sexually, if you will, like slavery, if you will. I mean, there's, when you use someone else for profit and gain and against their will.
The individual who I'm currently prosecuting for the overdose death, we've tracked at least 5 individuals I've prosecuted for possession of morphine who were stopped on our roads, higher than a kite. We've tracked it back to this individual. And it came from, he sells most of it to an individual near the West Branch area. And he in turn comes back and actually prostituted one girl in our community and would trade sex for drugs. So when I see that kind of stuff going on, and we have really no investigative tool that can reach out like that, the individuals up here on 72 who sold the heroin and the cocaine said the reason they moved from West Branch to here is because our drug team was gone. They thought they were safe. That's why they moved. So when you hear that kind of stuff, you know, I can't quantify it in numbers. I can't tell you the H.U.N.T team has made 15 arrests or in our community, but the impact, because we have them there, prevents a lot of it.
Well, I got you anyways, you're the prosecutor. How many plea bargains do you do on this kind of thing, or is this something you're really not used to?
Well, you know, when you talk about plea agreements,
Yeah.
okay, there are a number of things that come into play with that. We have to follow something called the Michigan Sentencing Guidelines. And one of the first things I do is determine what I'm looking at in terms of how long does this person go to prison? Because I'll tell you what, you can sell heroin and get caught, I don't know, 2-3 times before you even score prison. That to me is scary. So I'm limited with what I can do with the funds I have.
Well, I mean, the only reason I'm asking is because really, a lot of this, it sounds like people just need to go to jail.
Yeah, but then-
Or prison.
No.
Well, I mean,
A lot of the first-time offenders do go to jail. Most of them do. It's not till the second or third time when we can get them to prison. And it usually is, and I don't know, last time I looked at Hunt statistics in reference to the individuals that they're investigating, almost all of them have been caught 1, 2, 3 times before. So, but when you talk about plea agreements, all of them are going to jail that are selling this stuff. The ones we can get to prison, they're going to prison. So when you talk about our plea agreements, they're not really plea agreements. If I can send someone to prison that maybe scores 7 years to 10 years, my plea offer will be, you're gonna go for 7 years. Knowing the parole system as I understand it, I've been doing this a long time, so and it never ceases to amaze me the people that'll agree to go to prison. The individual who had the meth lab out there, he had information on a murder that occurred. Okay, so I end up finding myself, what am I gonna trade for that? He wants a year in the county jail, and I laugh. I said, it's not gonna be a year in the county jail. You're going to prison for a while. So, you know, there's a lot more that goes into when you talk about plea agreements than just, oh, you deal away stuff. We don't. The serious people go.
Let me throw this in. We try to do an investigation that's so good that he has the ability to send them to prison without expending his budget for trial. Our quality of work is very high.
no, I'm just, understand, I'm just trying to get informed here, so this is,
Kind of to wrap this up,
I know I could talk all night.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I've got a special guest here tonight that I didn't know about. But I know that we had talked about, you know, Hunt being on our ballot. What can we do as a group to help sponsor that? We had, David talked about, you know, when can we get some yard signs? What can we do for that? When is that vote coming up, and how can we help influence it in a positive direction so we get Hunt back in?
I wish the sheriff were here because I wasn't able to attend the last meeting. I don't know if Carolyn knows. I think that it's going to be in November, at least the last I heard. It's going to be on the November ballot. And there were some thoughts that went back and forth. Should we be in the August primary when not a whole lot of people generally get out and vote, or should we be in the November with this big presidential election going on, where you know a lot of people would vote? The decision was November.
ooh,
So that's when the millage is going to occur. I wasn't a part of that decision or that conversation.
I would have gone for August, because
Yeah.
usually if you're thinking about a high Democratic turnout, you're,
So anyway.
That's gonna be a high turnout.
Yeah.
If you put together like bullet points and that simple message, how you can do it, so you can take that to people, because I know when you get around why I was, the impression of people why I was voted down, people want to vote it down, so people like us can, Carrie does a good job and give bullet points so we can speak to that. We can't speak to it simply and intelligently like you had.
Yeah.
I know you gave much more information. We're not going to be able to win people over why they should be voted for.
That's, see, to me, I had a conversation with Gary, and I am not political. I've spent my entire life not being political, and it never dawned on me that people
Education.
don't want their community to be safe. Just baffles me.
well, it's not that we don't want it to be safe, it's
You
just,
can
you know,
understand-
Yeah, but you have to
What
understand
is-
my perspective of,
like we were talking on the phone, if you don't mind me opening up it a little bit
Absolutely.
more. I have a problem with some of the federal laws that are in drug use.
we don't enforce,
But you know what I'm saying, and these are the things I think of when I go to the poll. So it's like, you know, I pretty much had enough of the infringement. I mean, you know, I have a problem with terrorism, but, you know, I don't like the government's cure for it. You know, if I can carry a weapon and protect myself, I'm a lot happier than waiting for my county sheriff department that takes 45 minutes, and if they show up out there, they may say, well, could you call in a report, because we're kind of busy, and that kind of, you know, so when I hear things about the Alcona County Sheriff's Department, I ain't real happy either, but you understand, we had to, and you thought differently, and I hopefully this turned out different than you.
Oh, no, I see, you know, I just don't ever want to get in an adversarial argument. I'm not an expert in any of these fields.
No,
I
and I'm
do
just
what I
trying
do.
to ask questions.
But I am all about your Second Amendment rights. I am all about small government, and I am all about protecting our citizens. And that's what we do. We execute high-risk search warrants with all the local departments. We are highly trained in that aspect. The only thing higher than that than us is our emergency support team. So if they're numerically score out and it's so dangerous, they will come. They'll come in a helicopter, by a vehicle. Otherwise, we will do it. We'll help out with all kinds of investigations, so.
Well, see, but this is what it is, you talk to us, and, you know, I'm a little more educated, so next time, yeah, I won't vote no,
And
but,
it's
you know.
difficult for me to understand, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you guys for.
One question.
One more question.
What we need to do is get the people that have to deal with this all the time. I'm a first responder and a firefighter also, and I was the one that tried to save the one that you're talking about, and I had to have the kids crying and take them in the other room while he was taken away. I was also at another one where I was working on this lady and bringing her back to life with her 4-year-old crying, "Are you going to save my mom?" We need to do something to get that out, whether we're on television or whatever you need to do, the people that actually work with this, to get in, that are known, and get it somewhere.
I would agree with that, but I have a face for radio.
Well, that would be fine, but we gotta do something to get the word out.
Well, you know, the other thing too is talk to people, I mean, the people you run into.
Oh, I do.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, the problem's education.
It is.
If you had the education, you'd get the money. If you have no education, all you have is something that says, oh, they want money for this. They're doing that all the time, they say no.
See how difficult it is for me to come out just to meet with you folks, because I have, you know, officers in peril, and I've got to address that and then come up here. So it's,
I want to thank
I'm
you
wearing
very
many
much.
hats.
Yes.